Hey guys, welcome to this new video where I will go over my second SPL game against Umbry. As usual, I will spend the first half of this video going over the team that I brought and the second part going over the actual battle. So this time the team building part will be a bit different because I remember pretty clearly how I ended up with the teams that I brought. So we'll go over through the whole building process. Hopefully it's a bit more interesting to follow. So this is the team that I brought. You can see it on the screen right now. I'm going through every Pokemon and every set. And the way I ended up with this product is because I modified this team. So this was a power spam team that I posted in the forum a few months ago. And it's a team I was liking quite a bit when I was using it, starting in Color 3. And since I knew it was quite solid and often brought me good results, I felt like I could just go from this basis, revamp it to like fit something else I wanted to do with it. And yeah, use the final result. So how did I go about it? The first part is this team was trying to abuse this Terrorizer set with a lot of power inducers. And this time I didn't want to play it like that, but I wanted to use spikes again because I liked how Fortress played out in the first game. And before SPL started, I was practicing on the ladder with Fortress quite a bit, and just liked Fortress team a lot. I knew I wanted to keep spinning, so I knew I wanted to use spikes, and I knew I wanted to keep spinning. So I removed Stormy for Fortress. Went with the classical set, honestly. Yep. Max HP, max PDF. You know what? I can just import the sets from the other team. So I had Fortress over Stormy, and I just like adapted every other team members based on this change because obviously it changes the way the team works and needs to be built quite a bit. So the first big change is the Terrorizer moveset. I now need to be a pursuit variant, because that's how I was gonna deal with Gengar and to allow Fortress to spin. Since I didn't plan to use Magneton, I always like to be able to threaten the Spiker, especially Skarmory, with my T-Tar. So when with Flamethrower over Fire Blast, the team plays a bit slow. I didn't want to miss potentially. So I didn't mind since the team plays a bit slowly, I feel like I didn't really need the special attack boost from Fire Blast compared to Flamethrower, so went with the reliable option. I will not show the fourth move, came to me a bit later in the build, so I will not include it yet. I will go over it later. The next big change was Swampert. The original version in the Power Spam team was a Curse variant. Felt like it would help me with Snorlax and Suicune at the time. However, I now had spikes to deal with those. So a set I like with spikes is Surf and Roar. I do like Surf because I feel like Monopert has the best all-around matchups. It also is able to get damage on Skarmory and Fortress once again, should I be in a Spikes war. I do like Roar in general with Spikes because you just, you shuffle things around, get some Spikes damage. Not to mention, I just like having a phaser in general on Spikes team. Always good to prevent getting ravaged by some setuppers. Protect is for recovery, pretty standard stuff. I'm gonna import the set. The spread is pretty standard. I didn't go with the SPL investment to tank Moltres and Zapdos because I didn't feel like it. And I wanted to maximize defense because it's my sturdiest physical wall here. Kinda. So I went with Protect on the last slot. Usually you see Toxic here, but I felt like I wanted my Swampert to be able to switch on Toxic if need be. Or just in general, if I wanna 1v1 Skarmory, I don't want my Swampert to risk getting poisoned and then ending the short on being healthy in the late game for Tyranitar or Aerodactyl. So I went with Refresh, didn't feel like I needed Toxic honestly. Spikes plus Roar can handle everything that can be thrown at Swampert. And my team was sturdy enough to the point where, I don't know, just didn't feel like using Toxic. Refresh just felt better with my preferences. Just wanted my Swampert, you know, to switch safely into many Pokemon without being completely down after getting Toxic. So I will not go over the Jirachi slot because I remember Jirachi and Blissey were decided at the end. So originally on the Zapdos slot, I wanted to use Moltres. The biggest reason is it's a Pokemon I don't use often, and I feel like it's pretty good with spikes. So I originally had the standard Moltres. I won't bother investing on the EVs yet because it's gonna change anyway. So now regarding Jirachi, I knew I didn't want to use this set anymore on this team. I wanted a Wisher. Like I said in the past, like in the previous video and in my Wish video, I like using Wish alongside Fortress. And I like using a mixed wall. Blissey could be a Wish user, but it's not a good mixed wall. And Jirachi could fill both slots, and you will see why I wanted my Blissey to not be Wish in a second. So I went with Jirachi as my mixed wall and Wisher. I went with this spread, it's a spell of Jirachi, but with quite a bit on defense investment. The reason I went with this much defense is because it always eats Earthquake from Dugtrio at full life, so sending Dugtrio Jirachi is pretty much never the sentence as long as I keep it to 100. And even being like upward to 90 is fine because you have Protect for leftovers. Then you can win the 1v1 with Body Slam. Went with the standard set. I like Body Slam just because you can 1v1 Dug. Fire Punch is because I want to be able to stick it to Skarm, Fortress, Wish Protect, Classic. So, originally when I had this lineup, I knew I could run into Suicune and Milotic problem especially. Milotic kinda just sits on the team and I can't make any progress whatsoever. So, this made me want to use a tech that we don't see often, but it's quite good to deal with those two especially, and it's Snatch Blissey. Didn't need this counter, didn't need Wish counter anymore because Jirachi was gonna Wish now. Also, I like counter on Blissey a lot, but now that Dugtrio pack beat up to deal with Blissey, I'm not as fond of it anymore. I liked counter especially before because it could always deal with Dugtrio in any situation, as long as Blissey was earthy enough, obviously. So I went with Snatch and Toxic. So the way Snatch works for the uninitiated is you can steal some move, and against Milotic you wanna still Refresh, and in combination with Toxic you 1v1 Milotic now, and against Suicune you wanna Snatch Rest. The only thing you need to think about for this situation is that you need to be at 100 with Blissey, because otherwise you Snatch Rest but then you're sleeping, and if Suicune didn't die from poison this turn you can just sleep the next turn and you've amounted to nothing. So against Suicune you need to be more careful when revealing Snatch, and against Milotic it's pretty free. So yeah, knowing I wanted to use Moltres and would run into Milotic problems, I wanted to use Snatch Blissey, so I needed a backup Wisher and that's why I ended with Jirachi. So this was the team I ended up with. I tested quite a bit on the ladder, and was overall satisfied with the result, but Moltres didn't feel that amazing, and like the team obviously have fighters problem, there is no fighting resist beside Moltres, but Moltres can take quite a bit against some fighter, and doesn't always threaten the kill back against like Ariyama or Machamp. And Umbry had some Ariyama in a replace. So while pondering my options, one was Mix Zapdos, and one that I had been using before on Fortress team, before SPL, was Salamence. Salamence felt much better because I felt like it could abuse spikes much like Moltres while being sturdy against fighters. While testing the team, sometimes I would mispredict, send Moltres on an unexpected fighting stab, eat Rock Slide and die, and then like I would just get completely hard pressured by fighters. But with Salamence, it wouldn't be as dangerous to pivot against fighters. So I had Mixments. I always like Dragon Claw, Fire Blast, Brick Break. Feel like this it's a bit of everything. As for the last move, I didn't feel like I needed HP Grass here because this team doesn't really threaten, doesn't really get threatened by Swampert. And Spikes can deal with it too, in combination with Dragon Claw. I'm also quite... I also like to be quite prepared against CM Pass Celebi. And while Roar Swampert is pretty good against most Cerebrus, like Tyranitar and everything, Celebi is the one Cerebrus that you don't want to deal with. Some Suicune too. So Roar Salamence was a tech I liked quite a lot, because it has a lot of usage between shuffling and handling those threats that I just talked about, mainly Mono Suicune and Celebi, but it also works very well in combination with Spikes, because most of Mixmate's checks do not like Spikes at all, like Milotic or Blissey, so you can shuffle them around and rack up Spikes damage. Plus, Salamence is quite threatening, so you can always roar something that is gonna be scared to stain, and yeah, just keep your offensive pressure. And to go back on Tyranitar, the last slot I went with was Focus Punch after talking with Vapokuno, because I had some issues threatening Blissey, and even Snorlax, honestly. Snorlax isn't that easy, so Focus Punch could help. Also with Focus Punch, I don't feel like I need the attack nature, so I can just go minus attack and keep my speed. Can always be useful against some Swampert and Blissey, you know. Even some slow T-Tar on slow Meta... No, not slow Metagross, but slow T-Tar, yeah, definitely. And this was the final lineup. And it worked pretty well in practice, so it was time to go into the game with it. And I will start it. Yeah, I hope you enjoyed the way I revamped the team. That's something I like to do in general. When I have a team that I find quite solid, I feel like I can just use the basis when I need to build new teams. And just changing one mon sometime feels you force, obviously, to adapt the rest of the squad to it, especially if it's an essential member. Like in this case, going from Starmie to Fortress obviously shapes the team quite differently. And you end with a new product that just feels as good as the original. Now as for the game itself. So I led Tyranitar, Umbry led Suicune. I knew I had some potential Suicune trouble, keep that in mind, but I knew I also had the tech with Snatch Blissey, just need to be careful with it. I switched Blissey. Based on the surf damage, I think you can already see that it's defensive Suicune. It's confirmed on turn 2, because Seismic Toss did 1/4 of the Suicune's life, and I get phased out. So I know Fortress is quite good against those teams. I just need to watch out for a potential Magneton or Ductrio trapping it. Also, something I didn't mention in the team building department is Toxic Snatch Blissey is quite vulnerable to Duck Trio, but I still had specially defensive Jirachi with the spray to always tank it. So I don't often feel forced to go Blissey on special attackers early, and this way I can avoid the Duck Trio trap until like it's safer. Yeah, so Salamence gets phased in against Suicune. I have no business staying in yet. Could throw a Dragon Claw, but it's not that useful. I would rather get my spikes up. Fortress is pretty safe against Suicune in general. So I go to it. Here, Umbry switches to Blissey, and I don't want to risk getting completely roasted by Fire Blast. I had some later battle where I was greedy because I wanted my spikes early against Blissey. Then I just lose Fortress on a Fire Blast, and I completely lose all kind of offensive pressure. And it looks like I'm facing a defensive team between Blissey and Suicune, so I will need my spikes most likely. I go Blissey as a result on a T-Wave. I think I just clicked Toxic here if I remember correctly. Oh no, I clicked Toss once, just because I don't want to reveal my status yet. But since I do not have a lot of like good offensive option against opposing Blissey, I just decide to reveal it on the second turn. I catch Tyranitar here on the switch, pretty good honestly. Another reason I was spamming Toxic at this point is because just in case there was a Duck Trio coming in, I would want to Toxic it, so I can try to get some chip on it, like a lot of chip actually, from spamming Soft Boiled. And it would help to prevent it from trapping like Jirachi, Fortress or Titan later. So I go immediately to Swampert against Tyranitar. Makes sense. At this point, it's my check tweet on this team. Focus Punch on the switch doing 40. With my spread confirms that it's a BKC tar, so max attack and max attack Focus Punch in general is just BKC tar, so Focus Punch, Rock Slide, HP Bug, Earthquake. The fact that it's toxic, it's quite good though, because it's on a timer. Usually this set is pretty good against defensive team because it puts a lot of pressure out while healing with leftovers, but now it's on a timer because it caught the toxic. Honestly, probably a misplay from Umbry at this point. So I click Protect. I could click something else, but I felt like Protect was safe anyway because I want my Swampert to get as much leftovers back as possible because I'm gonna need it to switch into Tyranitar repeatedly. Go Suicune here, so I decided it's time to get my spikes. Getting them against Suicune is pretty safe because even +1 serve only amounts to something like 40-45 between leftovers. And the fact that Fortress would still be at 60 after a +1 serve, it's not that hard to heal it back up with Wish later. And getting Y Spikes helps quite a bit. Now on turn 11 I take this crit, which is honestly very annoying because healing Fortress at 22 is a very different story from healing it at 60 something. Because it's much harder to get a Wish pass on it. But I know, like, I'm obviously quite annoyed at this point, but I know with some clever double switch or switching Fortress on Suicune sleeping, I can get some leftovers at the end of the turns. And obviously to the point where it's easier to wish Fortress back up with Jirachi. So I go back to Blissey because Blissey is a good reset against Suicune, no matter how much boost it gets. The only thing I need to watch out for is my Seismic Toss PP. Because at this point, my plan against Suicune is to force an endgame situation where even last Suicune, or like not necessarily an endgame situation, but I want to force a situation where I'm gonna Toxic the Suicune, spam a few Toss, and then click Snatch on the turn it would rest, so it dies to Toxic, and then I get rid of the threat. I toss it once. I want to keep my toxic PP too, that's quite important actually. I already wasted 2, and I definitely need at least 1 PP to beat the Suicune. And they go by fast if I start spamming it without thinking about it first. So I throw down 2 more PP of Toxic here. I think I use Softball this turn because I want to be at full to snatch. No, I actually used Toss, never mind. I thought I would Softball to potentially snatch. So like I said earlier, I want to heal my Fortress a little bit, so I go on Suicune as it tries to burn the sleep turns. Go back to Blissey. Good Claydol from Umbry, but I take this turn to Toxicate. Honestly, when I Toxic the Claydol here, I thought that Umbry was using Refresh Claydol, because honestly, having Claydol on the timer is not that good. But I needed to find out, so I switched to Swampert here. No reason to stay in with Blissey any further. Plus, by going Swampert on Claydol, yeah, it catches Claydol and both T-Tar, so I get some leftovers. Now I know that Tareta isn't staying on, physical T-Tar isn't staying on Swampert, so I go to Fortress to get some leftovers recovery. At this point, it's already... Oh yeah, I spikes here, because Suicune is still sleeping. So, you will see later that Umbry had a Duck Trio. I think she could have switched Duck Trio here, honestly, on this turn, but she wanted to burn another sleep turn with Suicune, and maybe she thought I would switch out and not stay in with Fortress. Anyway, I don't risk any further. I get my 1 spikes and fuck off. I go back to Blissey because that's the best thing I have to do against Suicune at this point. Once again, need to watch out for my Toxic PP. I've already depleted 4 of them. So I decide I would rather force the Suicune to rest, and I can phase it away anyway for now. And I can keep the Toxic Snatch thing for the late game. I softball here because I want my Blissey to be at full. Once again for the Snatch thing later. So I go to Swampert. The nice thing about Swampert, as you can see, as a phaser, is that it heals passively. Most phaser are... Okay, so that's a big turn because I catch a Duck Trio here. It takes some chip, quite important. Most importantly, it reveals to me that there is a Duck Trio, so I need to be careful with my Blissey and Fortress. But I get some chip on it, and it's quite important too, because I think you need 2 spikes damage on the trio for Seismic Toss to 2 KO with Blissey. Yeah, Seismic Toss does around 41 on the trio. Sorry. So I know that if I bring the trio once again on the field with Seismic Toss, the trio won't ever be safely switching into Blissey as long as I spam Seismic Toss. So with the spikes down and Swampert threatening Claydol, I have some opportunity to rack up spikes damage here. While I protect this turn because just in case Claydol try to spin on Surf, it would take a bit more toxic damage. Suicune wakes up, but it's not a problem. I can phase it away with Swampert. Even Swampert taking a Surf is not a problem because leftovers is gonna passively heal it. You can see that I caught Duck Trio on the switch once again. So Duck Trio is at 76, now it cannot switch into Seismic Toss anymore, without the threat of being 2K'd. I get the T-Tower out here, taking both spikes and Toxic, but I can just phase it away. I know it's scared to stay in. Even Suicune is slowly taking damage to the point where it's gonna be forced to rest at some point. Whenever it's resting, I can heal Fortress passively with leftovers, get my spikes off. Everyone stops the shuffle party from Swampert and just roar with Suicune, but without spikes on their side, roaring with Suicune just doesn't make any progress whatsoever. I even get some lefties heal on Fortress. It's back at 47. It's pretty safe now. It doesn't even die from Earthquake from the trio. So I have a pretty good board state. Claydol and Tita are toxic too. Swampert kinda goes uncontested, as you can see. Blissey doesn't really threaten it, Claydol neither, Tita neither. And with the spikes on the field, I can just keep like getting spikes damage from the shuffling. So I go back to it and I start shuffling again. Blissey gets a free heal, but that's not a problem. As long as I can remove slowly Titar and the trios, that's pretty good. I'm in business. Also, there is no good Salamence answer so far on Umbry's side, so I know Salamence can go in. At some point, Umbry tries to counteract all my roar spam from Swampert, and I decide to surf, and I catch her on the focus punch turn, and I get to kill Titar. I get to see the last slot and it's Zapdos. Honestly, kinda surprised at this lineup, but now that I think about it, I remember something very similar from Linus Dump. Zap, Coon, Claydol, Blaze Dug with Tita in the last slot. I switch Jirachi here instead of Blissey because I don't wanna risk anything from Duck Trio. I thought there is no reason for Umbry to click T-Wave here, so going Jirachi is pretty safe anyway. So I see Toxic B-Pass, pretty much know that it's T-Bolt and usually HP Grass in the last slot. But it could be Rest too, honestly it could be Rest on this team. Rest would be annoying because it can switch it to Spedef. Zapdos would be able to switch into Salamence repeatedly and rest away the rest of the damage. We'll see about that later. So at this point, I know Ductrio is eventually gonna die because of spikes, and it's not like safely trapping anything on this team at this point. Claydol is eventually gonna die too from Toxic, plus I have Tita who can crunch it down as it tries to spin. Once Claydol is down, I have spikes from Fortress and the Roar Shuffling from Swampert and Salamence, to the point where the only win condition is Suicune and I need to, like, I just need to time the snatch right to win the game and avoid getting swept by late game Suicune. I get to heal on this turn. I know I'll probably get Fortress status by T-Wave on the switch, but I wanna heal it back up to 100. Because with Claydol Toxic, I can just spam spikes in the face of Claydol, even if I cannot touch it with Earthquake and Explosion. And if I get more spikes, I get more pressure on both Blissey and Suicune. I think I went hard Titari because I knew Claydol was coming, so I wanted to catch it on the switch. Yeah, I remember that was the reason. So I catch Claydol on the switch with Titar. So there are a lot of Claydol variants that exist out there. Offensive, defensive. I'm always slower though because I have no speed investment. But I want to get a good crunch off. So I click crunch here. So at this point I thought another Earthquake would be coming, or possibly a Rapid Spin, and I felt like Salamence covered both options. And Umbry decides to click Explosion, which honestly, well, it doesn't kill, so it was okay. But looking back at the game and looking at my possible win condition, Salamence was obviously still one. It would help to shuffle Suicune eventually. And like even being able to tank a hit, because now I'm in surf range from Suicune, which is quite annoying. So if I would have to replay this battle, I don't know if I would go to Salamence and risk a potential explosion crit, which would limit my options for the end game. Maybe going Jirachi was safer, honestly, because it's not like I take a lot from her Earthquake. And I have leftovers to passively heal me anyway. The thing is, another reminder that even a Pokemon that is down bad, like my Salamence right now, is never quite dead yet because of the Wish Sack mechanic in ADV. And we'll see about that later. So I go Zapdos here. I'm trying to understand why I never go Blissey, but I think the reason I don't go Blissey against Zapdos is I don't want to use my Toxic and Toss because I'm on a pressure Zap that could still be rest at this point. So I would rather use Jirachi to combat Zapdos and keep my Blissey PP for the Suicune late game. I click Body Slam here because, well, I'm not taking that much damage anyway. I'm also trying to catch a Doctor on the switch, should she want to go to it. She makes a good play here, clicking Baton Pass on the Protect. But my Jirachi is easy to tank those. And I know that even if I don't get the Paralysis, the Doctor after the Body Slam is gonna be in Spike's range. So it's never gonna be a bother for any of Titar and Blissey, especially Blissey. I don't really need Jirachi for this endgame, but I do need Blissey in my mind. So that's why I was using the Jirachi to combat Zapdos. I get the Paralysis. Before killing it off, I click Protect another time for another round of leftovers. Now Doctor is dead and Jirachi, thanks to leftovers, can get out of Seismic Toss range to the point where I can wish myself back up. So it's pretty clear anyway from this situation, from this point, that the only win condition from Umbry is a Suicune sweep, and I just need to be careful. I also have the option to force Suicune to rest, get Fortress for example on a rest turn, click Explosion on the first turn of sleep, and then finish it off with Focus Punch Titar or Dragon Claw Salamence. So I have multiple ways to deal with Suicune. I think I take this turn. Yeah, I just get a Paralysis. I mean, I don't want to risk going Salamence on the serve because Salamence can still be useful. I can just wish the Salamence when Suicune is sleeping, if need be. Okay, so now with Suicune paralyzed, I realize I can already go for the win by getting full paralysis on Seismic Toss. And I tried to go for it here. So my option were to go to a phaser and phase Suicune away, which would mean that it would be sleeping one more turn later when it would get on the field again. But I felt like I had a good opportunity to kill it, to win the game on the spot on a 25%, so I go for it on the next turn. And I don't get it, so Suicune gets to rest, but I don't mind. I can just send my phaser. I think I send Swampert. Yeah. I don't want to reveal a Roar on Mance yet too. Could be clutch later. Not like going Mance makes any progress to me anyway. I can also just use If you wonder why I never go Fortress on Blissey to get more spikes, it's because I don't want to risk like going on Toss and then getting fully paralyzed on another Toss, and now Fortress is below 50% when I needed to spikes more and get a boom off. It's not like I am under any pressure right now anyway. That's the problem with some Suicune team. When the win con becomes last month Suicune, you are pretty like out of options until this situation, and your opponent can play around it like I'm doing right now. Now I go Fortress though, because I'm coming on a wish, so even if it tosses on the switch, I'm back at full. I think I get my 3 spikes because Claydon is done anyway, so might as well get them and put more pressure on Suicune and Blissey. I'm gonna skip a bit. Going to Bliss. What do I click here? Softball, yeah, I'm clicking softball because I wanna have Blizzard 100 for the snatch. Again, repeating myself at this point, but you know. Yeah, I go for it at this. I go for it now. I'm deciding that I'm gonna toss once and then spam snatch. But it doesn't quite work out yet, because Umbry decides to rest immediately. So I'm like getting the Suicune down, and I think I'm gonna switch as it rests this later. Yeah, I'm gonna switch now on an obvious rest turn. And I go to Swampert to phase it, classic. Once again, no reason to go Mance yet and reveal it. Zapdos is at 82 too, so it can still check Salamence. I'm just phasing the Suicune away, getting 25% every time. So now the Suicune is at 50 effectively, but it's gonna wake up. Checking to see what's happening again. Oh yeah, you're gonna see now. The game is gonna speed up. So I go... Honestly, looking back, once again, a bit of a detail, but before going Jirachi, I should have made my Blissey back to 100 for the snatch later, if I wanted to take that route. One important factor here is that Blissey is currently its Brick Break range from Salamence. I get fully paralyzed here, and I realize that I don't really need Jirachi anymore. What I can do... So, okay, so when I click Wish here, I have two options. I can go Protect to preserve Jirachi, but I realize that at this point that I can Wish Sack my Jirachi and get my Mance back on its feet. Where I don't, like, risk dying to Surf from Suicune. Not to mention that now Blissey is at 35. I'm gonna threaten the kill, and I'm always gonna get Blissey kill now. Because even if it like switches out, Blissey is effectively at 10 something, so it cannot take a hit from anything. Even my own Blissey. And as I shown in the team builder, my Blissey is quite speed crept too. So I know I'm gonna be faster than Umbry's Blissey. So there is a Toxic here, pretty good from Umbry, because it means that my Blissey cannot stay at 100. I toss on the switch, forcing Suicune to rest. And I can go Salamence. And the difference now is that since my Salamence is ulti, I can make this switch without risking dying to Surf, for one. And I can click Dragon Claw a few times, because since Suicune is forced to rest at this point, it doesn't have a spell F boost, and Dragon Claw is doing FT chunk. Blissey would die on the switch, and I get to Dragon Claw the Zapdos to the point where it can't even switch into Salamence anymore. So Umbry sacks Blissey here. Goes to Suicune because she wanna wake up. I go to Salamence. Slept 0 turn, so I get to Dragon Claw once while Suicune is still sleeping. And at this point, this is a checkmate situation because I can phase the Suicune away. You're gonna see why it's a checkmate. So by clicking Roar here, I'm gonna explain the situation later, real quick. I go Bliss. Let me think. Okay. So at this point, I change my win path. I feel like I don't need to snatch the Suicune anymore. So the Suicune is at 50. What I want to do here is phase it away. Either it doesn't click rest, and next time it comes in, Suicune is gonna be at 25 with the 3 spikes, where Salamence can kill it with the Dragon Claw. I just need Salamence to be on the field as Suicune comes in. If it decides to rest, it's gonna be at 75 upon coming in later. And it will still have 2 turns of sleep to burn, so 3 Dragon Claw is gonna amount to 75 minimum, because it does 25 min. And I still kill the Suicune. The thing I want to do at this point is get Zapdos in Dragon Claw range from Salamence, so I just need to weaken it once more. That's why I go Blissey. She clicks Toxic here, she T-Balls, so the situation is pretty obvious. She wants the Zapdos to die and Suicune to come in on Blissey and heal and start setting up. So I'm trying to heal Blissey because, like, maybe she could rest or something if she has it. But she revealed the hidden power at this point. I click Seismithos, now I get the Zapdos in Dragon Claw range and Zapdos cannot... Zapdos can't heal anymore. And I know my Salamence is gonna outspeed because I'm max speed. And I go Fortress here, and the reason is pretty simple, because I wanna boom with Fortress on Zapdos and get Salamence on the field safely. And Suicune is gonna come in and die from Dragon Claw. Even if here she decided to go Suicune, going Fortress would allow me to boom once again. And I always win. It's a checkmate situation, as long as I don't get fully paralyzed. Yeah, so by killing the Zapdos here, my Salamence gets a free entry. Suicune is at 55, yeah. 25, sorry. And I finish it off, and the game ends. Even if Suicune decided to rest earlier, like I said, it would be at 75 upon coming on the field with the spikes. Would still have 2 turns of sleep to burn. Dragon Claw 3 times wins the game. And yeah, that's it. That's how the game played out. Not gonna lie, my matchup was pretty good overall, especially when I got to Toxic the T-Tar and Claydol quite early. Removed the offensive pressure from T-Tar. We moved the longevity of our team by getting Claydol on a timer. Doctor didn't manage to do anything solid because Swampert got to shuffle it quite a bit earlier to the point where it wasn't eating in the back to come and surprise me. And it was also taking spikes to always be in 2k range from all my hits. And then Salamence just had the perfect combination of speed, power, and spikes to finish the team off. So yeah, felt pretty good about this game. I felt like I sequenced everything right, honestly. And the team worked out as intended. Hope you enjoyed this narration, guys, and see you soon for the third game of my SPL review.